hyperservices, using Asset Suite plus hyperservices, and you might say, well, why? What's the benefit of doing that? So there's some built-in characteristics that are powered by our virtual machine that will really, truly benefit you. And the first is, I mentioned that they're universal building blocks. So these are just some examples. Get current balance, that goes to SAP, set task to finish. That's actually sitting on top of Asset Suite and P6. So when that is called, it actually sets the task in Asset Suite to finish, and it sets the task in P6 to finish. But if you notice the hyperservice to the developer, they don't care that that went to SAP and that building block went to Asset Suite and P6. It's just a universal building block with input data and output data, and it's a reusable component as far as they're concerned. So why do you care universal? It's really the ease of development and really reducing the cost and complexity of building something. In software, you can build anything you want. You could do it in assembly language if you want. You'll never hear a developer tell you something's not possible. So it's not that we're making the impossible possible, it's that we're trying to lower the cost and the complexity so low that it doesn't make sense not to build the automations you want to build. So that's really the goal of this, and making it universal is one important aspect in that. Metadata driven just simply means deployment is radically simple. So you've got HyperService Studio, the development tool that you all have, and our HyperService runtime environment, which is embedded within Foundation Architecture, if you remember my design. So developers can collaboratively connect and develop remotely. And when they develop, we're just storing XML files in FA. So it's just XML files. When you want to deploy from one region to the next, ultimately it's just XML files, going to the next region, whether you use the new diff tools or however you sync it up. So it's radically simple deployment. Automatic SOA, that's important because I told you that other applications can call the components you build. So everything you build on top of Asset Suite, and believe me, there's a lot you can build on top of Asset Suite, that can be called by external applications. So, SAP, PeopleSoft, HR, you name it, your scheduling systems, whatnot. So the standards, the fact is we can call standard-based web services, and all hyperservices are automatically available as standard-based web services. Automatically managed. Why do you care? You've got a lot of built-in tools for you. And the most important one to me, and I think to a lot of you if you develop, is that one on the left. Every single component and all the children that it calls is logged automatically. If there's a failure, if your users call you and say, something failed, you can go straight here, see the exact point of failure, see the inputs that went into that component and the output, the error message that they got. So troubleshooting is really easy. If you're building new workflows and new apps, you're really reducing that testing cycle. But, you can schedule these hyperservices, obviously securing them, all sorts of things, monitoring them, you name it, built in for you. Automatically multitasked. We got an Itanium Solution Award for this, and why do you care? Performance. Performance will be phenomenal. So this is just an example application. You're looking at a program. It's a real program. It's an integration between Asset Suite and P6. But when our virtual machine executes this, it's read left to right. The first hyperservice executes. When that succeeds, those hyperservices execute, and those are not dependent on each other. So they'll run in parallel automatically, and their children will run in parallel. So you get phenomenal utilization of your hardware and phenomenal performance with this. So this is a real world app I'm showing you. This particular one, when it was originally written in Java, took 7 hours to run. It was processing 250,000 active work order tasks in Asset Suite. After being rebuilt in this layer, it took 3 to 3.5 hours to run. So you can expect. And when you're building new real-time applications using Compose for your users, as you know, performance is important. If you want to tap into 20 different tables and grab data and put it all in front of the user so they see everything without, just in one panel, you want that to perform. You want to be able to make those calls in parallel automatically. If you need to update 40 attributes, you want to be able to do it at one time. You don't want to call that COBOL module, the Asset Suite module, 40 times serially. So performance is actually one very important reason that you want to use hyperservices. I consider myself a pretty good Java programmer, or at least in the past I was. And I can tell you, I know how to multi-thread. There's no way I would build this solution at multi-threaded. It'd just be too complex, and no one else would be able to maintain it. So performance is a really critical reason, I think, or important reason. Some other things, semantic and visual. What this means is I mentioned, you program in our layer just like you would in Java or C#. But there's no gibberish code anywhere. It's all graphical pictures. Why is that important to your organization? Because in the IT environments I've seen, you've got every different kind of developer. You've got people that know SQL and they're gurus at it. In stored procedures, you might have folks that are COBOL developers. You might have folks that are C# or Java or even C developers. So this is a common ground. Even, with probably a 30-minute overview, anyone can actually read the programs. And I'm actually going to prove that to you later today. So the programs are very readable by everyone. So it's a place to converge. And what that means to you is when you're externalizing your customizations, when you need to go find out what that logic is that you've got because maybe someone didn't document it too well, you've got an easy, real, clean, clear place to see every component in that solution. Because it's built graphically. So that's why that's important. And plus, it reduces the complexity. Your programmers can do extremely powerful things very efficiently. All right, so that's about that. Now let's start talking about externalizing your customizations. So what is it that you can do today? Because there is actually a lot you can do today. Foundation architecture was built with a lot of extensibility in it. So I'm going to go back to that picture just to remind you of the foundation architecture. So down below at this bottom layer here is the baseline logic. That's what you will not be able to touch in 9.0. And you don't want to touch it, right? Traditionally, we don't want to touch the baseline layer. What foundation architecture has already given you, even in the current version, is an extensibility layer. So all the user interface or front-end presentation extensibility is in FA tailoring, and you're using the Compose tool for that. All of the business logic tailoring or externalization of business logic is in our layer. You can use other tools as well, but that's actually embedded for you. So you can see I've put our programs actually up above, and I said that our virtual machine is executing externalized business logic. So whenever you're using Compose and calling hyperservices, you're already putting that external to the baseline logic, and thus you're preparing really well for 9.0 when 9.0 comes around. You're actually doing a lot more than that, though. It turns out that by externalizing your customizations, you can actually go further than you've ever done before really easily. You can actually sit back and say, okay, what process am I trying to make really, really efficient? And you can start to go about it in new ways. And the end product, from what I've seen in the examples I'm going to show you, is, you literally get users waving, throwing kisses at you. You really made their lives easier, and that's kind of what we all want to do, right? Make a difference. And so you're not just preparing, you're actually making a real difference in your users' lives, and they will be blowing kisses at you for doing this. Okay, so for two types that you can do today. FA tailoring, which is you're using Compose, and maybe you're adding a button, or maybe you're adding a new field to a panel. So I promised you an example of that. Let me show you. The first example I'm going to give is AAP. Is AAP here? Anybody from AAP? Oh, that's okay. Actually, I'm using their PowerPoint. Okay, so, but it could lie, yeah. Okay, here we go. So these are all the